Oh my gosh. It's trying to go live here. It's acting weird. Here we go. Facebook. Hi, how are we doing? Stay home. Don't go out. You know how scary it is out there in the real world. Stay home and watch my interviews, all close to 1,000 of them on my YouTube, comedian Linda Marcus Smith. December 5th, special guest V. Tommy Chong is coming on at 2 o'clock Pacific to party because it's my 1,000th interview. That's hard to say when you have dentures. Today we have a special guest, and his name is Tony Vicich.
Vicich. You got it perfect in rehearsal.
I know it. Vicich.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony Vicich is here, you guys. Let me read you his intro that I got from him. I have people send me their intros, and even then I mess up every intro, so don't even worry about it. Okay, Tony Vicich has been a stand-up comedian since 1986. How many of you can say that? I didn't think so. For 15 years, he toured professionally throughout the United States. Wow. Along with being a former club owner, he since 2001 has been the owner of comedyschools.com. I'm going to go check that out when I get off here. A comedy development workshop that has seen its students go on to professional acting careers and as regulars on Saturday Night Live. Welcome to the stage, Tony Vicich. Woo!
Thank you.
Hi.
Thanks. Hi.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You betcha. What city are you in, Tony?
I'm right outside of, I'm in Greater Phoenix. So we're in the Phoenix area. I'm in a city outside of Phoenix. I was kind of ready for like a small town thing after living in LA from the 70s. Around 2008, I built a house in a little town called Maricopa. I thought, how big can it get? And now there was like 10,000 people here. Now there's like 100,000 people. So I'm looking further out in the desert. That's my wife and I's fantasy, is to only see people when they've paid a ticket.
Yes. My daughter has 2 acres out at Music Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. That's fantastic.
Beautiful out there. They're building it up.
And you're in Oregon.
I'm from Oregon and I live in Vegas.
Oh, okay. So you're in Las Vegas. I spent a lot of time in Las Vegas back in the day. I enjoyed myself quite a bit. Not, the way most people enjoy themselves. I just enjoyed the town and the shows and that sort of thing. Some stuff. I did some weird stuff, but not.
I want to hear all about your comedy touring. You started in 1986, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What made you start, and what all did you do in your career of comedy touring?
I got my start. I was already living in LA. I'd been in LA for a number of years. I thought I wanted to be a serious actor. And so I was going to acting school at the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute. But I'd be on stage doing a scene, some Tennessee Williams thing, and people would be laughing. And I go, did I do it wrong? They said, no, you did it funny. And then a woman named Claudia Linnell, who is, a talent with a real resume in her own right, but is the daughter of Mark Linnell, who was the co-owner, still is the co-owner of the Improvs, got to know me and said, you should do stand-up comedy. I had no idea who she was. And I go, it's because my dad owns a comedy club. And I go, really? And she goes, yeah, he's one of the co-owners of Melrose Improv. So she kind of walked me down to their open mic nights and told me where their open mic nights were in Hollywood and introduced me to some people. Then in 1986, I actually flew from Los Angeles to Phoenix to work as an opening act at a club. The odd thing is, you develop relationships. The name of the club was Finny Bones. It was owned by a comic magician named Michael Finney. So my first paid gig was at his club in 86. And now this Saturday in Coolidge, Arizona, there's a large theater called the Pence Center. It's not named for Mike Pence. Wouldn't be any big deal if it was, but it's not. And I have Michael Finney headlining a show called the Original Arizona Kings of Comedy. In my one of my jobs is producing and promoting shows. So that's a relationship that goes back decades.
Wow.
So I kind of got the bug. I mean, I was working as a bartender in LA, doing that thing and doing equity waiver plays. That's plays for no money, and going for auditions and not getting them. And I started getting hired as a comic because the boom was going on, and they were just everywhere, all over the country. I lived on Hollywood Boulevard, but I found myself in Dothan, Alabama, and Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Cleveland, Ohio. And it just kind of cascaded into 15 years of nonstop road work.
Wow. That's really a dedication, being a road working comedian, because a lot of other things in your life have to go on hold, like relationships suffer.
Yeah, they might. I mean, I had all of that too. I mean, during that time, I got married, and but we had a daughter. I still have a daughter who lives near Medford, Oregon, by the way. That's why when I knew you had the Oregon connection, she lives at the foot of Mount Shasta. And as I understand it, even though it's 100 miles from Medford, that's near in that part of the world.
Yes.
So, we had bought a house, I would fly back for, soccer. So I really kind of, and I don't know how successful I did any of it, because then to have some stability, I bought a comedy club, which is, don't do that for stability. So I owned a club and I was touring and I had a family. So I found a way to balance all those to some degree. I wasn't going to put, a marriage or raising a child on hold, or any of that. So I found a way to do it, for quite a while.
And then you got out of comedy doing the touring and owned a club.
Yeah.
How did that go?
At first, pretty weird. I mean, well, look, when I said I found a way to do all that, eventually, none of it was working for me. I was very unhappy, and a lot of people around me were unhappy. And I don't know if that was due to the profession but all professions have a certain amount of stress to them, but that all kind of ran its course, except for being a father. My partner in my comedy club developed a terrible drug habit. So I was living in LA where we had all kind of started dealing with our drug habits in the 70s and 80s. But this club was in the Midwest where they were just really kicking it into high gear. So kind of got out of the club business and got out of the booking business. I was just unhappy with what I was doing. And I was unhappy with where it was creatively as a comic. So I had kind of a year off, kind of looking for what I was going to do, thinking I'd go back to the theater. I directed a play. And a friend of mine named Kurt Matthews in San Francisco, who used to tour with me, suggested I do workshops. He was doing them in San Francisco. And I thought, all right, that'll be a nice stopgap. I'll do that for like a year. We'll see what happens. And that was 23 years ago. I just really love doing it. You find a lot of people, everybody wants to be, the movie star. Everybody wants to go, Johnny, where do I sit? I mean, Johnny's not alive anymore, but you get the metaphor, then you get into it and then you find out, oh, what I really like is lighting something, or what I really like is being behind the camera, or what I really like is yelling action, or what I really like is taking tickets. So most people I know in our business, everybody starts out wanting to be, a rock and roll outlaw country and western singing movie star. And then you find something else. And I found this weird section of it where doing workshops, formalizing in a sense, what I was kind of doing for a long time anyway, writing for other people or helping other people, became a career, like a 23-year career so far.
Oh, that's so fabulous. I want to hear about your comedy workshop school website.
Yeah, so the name of our company is comedyschools.com. I'll tell people, they go, what's your company? I go, comedyschools.com. And they go, you have a website? And they go, yes, yes, I do. They go, what is it? And I go, it's comedyschools.com. I mean, back at the beginning of all that, I mean, we've been doing this long enough now to be at the beginning of some things. We thought, all right, how do we get people to remember the name of the business? So we'll just name the business, after the website. So we have a website. We do workshops live locally, primarily in Phoenix. We've done them in other cities, Albuquerque, some in Los Angeles, done seminars in Detroit, etc. All over, but I've always been kind of home based in Phoenix. It just kind of happened here. A club owner in 2001 heard I was doing it in San Diego. I just ran some ads in like their alternative paper, like their version of the LA Weekly or New Times or whatever the now corporate leftist newspaper, liberal newspaper was in San Diego. I thought, well, there's no competition down there. I could drive down there on Sundays and do this. And I was already doing it. And then a club owner in Phoenix who I knew goes, come out here and do it. We'll support you. And it just exploded in Phoenix. I mean, like almost like, whoa, So we've been doing it for 23 years. During the pandemic, we added the Zoom component, online component. So we actually have workshops we do online. People go, how do you do comedy online? I go, well, I don't know. How do you do comedy in front of a camera? How do you do comedy, when there's 3 cameras pointing at you and the audience is 500 yards away and there's a guy sitting at a desk, reading his notes while you tell jokes. It's kind of a foreign way to do things. So I think Zoom or Facebook Live or any of this is an important component to anybody who wants to learn stand-up comedy. And there's people who disagree with me, and that's fine. I don't care, because you have to learn how to relate to a camera, which if you're successful, even if you're not sick, that's my dog, by the way, Roscoe. Even if you're not successful, you're eventually going to be filmed or taped. And I've seen a lot of great club comics kind of fall apart in front of a camera. So we have a Zoom workshop where you can get information, and we actually do shows. Come here, buddy. Come here. Come here.
Let me see your dog.
There he is. I don't know if you can see him. That's Roscoe. Roscoe, say hi. There he is.
Is he part Rottweiler?
Well, he's a mix. And he's old. He's like me, and I actually have a cat down here too. I don't know if you want to see the cat. Come here, Ray.
I do.
He won't cooperate. Come here, Raymond. This is Ray.
Oh.
And Ray, I was going to name him Ray the Dumpster Cat, but my wife got mad because she found him in a dumpster when he was less than a day old, and brought him home. She brought him home. Go ahead, buddy. She brought him home, and I'd had cats before. You live in apartments, you have cats. You live in a house, you have dogs. But, it was like, well, we got all this leather furniture, so maybe we shouldn't have cats, but she found him in a dumpster, and now he's like my best pal, and he was raised with a dog, so he thinks he's a dog. I just went off on some weird animal tangent. I think I'm doing Wild Kingdom now. Here is a half Labrador, half pit bull. Roscoe's a mix. He's primarily lab, but he's a little bit of a mix. Yeah.
Yes. Well, okay. So you have pictures behind you. And I want to get back to the Saturday Night Live component of your school, comedyschools.com. But there's a picture that intrigues me behind you. The person with the black shirt on, looking down, playing a guitar.
Yeah, that's there was a young man there who was a folk musician from Minneapolis.
What's your most prized picture?
Well, so I mean, that's actually Bob Dylan. So, who was a young Jewish boy from Minnesota named Robert Zimmerman, and that's a picture of him playing the bass guitar right around the time of the Blonde on Blonde sessions. I don't know. I don't really have a prize picture, and some of them have. Like the Led Zeppelin picture right next to him, that's actually autographed by Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. There's a Glenn Campbell photo down there where we have Glenn's autograph. There's other pictures. I don't know if I come around here. I've always was enamored by the Beat Generation poets and writers. So that's Jack Kerouac. I got that at City Lights bookstore. So we have a lot of stuff up there. Some of it is just, I'm a big Deadhead. You know, you might appreciate that being from Oregon. I don't know, but I've been going to Dead shows since 1970. So we've got, there's like a 1967 poster there. It's a tambourine. I produced a TV show in Oklahoma City. The band gave me that tambourine. The band was on the TV show. So I like them all. I just thought it would be a cool look for a wall to have. You know, some of those are expensive. I bought some of those were signed by the artist. Some of them are just dear to me from a place and time. So we just thought to make a cool wall. You know.
Yes. I got so many questions for you in so little time. Tell me about you getting people through comedyschools.com to Saturday Night Live. What an accomplishment. Thank you for doing that. Kudos.
Yeah, so we think that's pretty cool. I mean, we never guarantee that. I've always been cognizant of the wariness anybody has of any sort of entertainment school. And you know what? It's justifiable. You know, when you have these companies that go, be a model or just look like one, you know, and living in LA for a long time and living in Hollywood and West Hollywood and the Valley, you know, you see there's a certain amount of, you know, hustle and scam. There's hustle and scam in anything. It could be wanting to be a model. It could be, you know, buying crypto which is so abundantly clear right now.
Totally.
We never tell anybody take our classes and you'll become rich and famous. As a matter of fact, we tell people there's a good chance we won't hire you for the shows we produce. These are two separate businesses, and we don't want to take you down a garden path thinking you take Tony Visich's class and you'll be on these particular shows. That being said, we've had a certain level of success. Our people who have been with us have had that level of success. So currently, Michael Longfellow is a new cast member on Saturday Night Live and seems to be doing very well. A young guy who was named Josh McDermott started out with us as a stand-up comic, went to LA, you know, went through what you go through in LA, got an agent, started getting commercials, and now he's been on The Walking Dead for the past 6 or 7 years. And we've had a lot of people. Sean Latham was on Barstool Sports. I mean, other people have been on the Kimmel Show or specials and stuff. So that component really becomes more them than us. So, you know, it's like maybe you had a teacher. Two of the teachers who really influenced me in high school are still with us. Peggy Cochran and Lon Simmons were just wonderful teachers who really kind of stoked in me creativity and the desire to read. I just gave a 16-year-old kid my copy of Grapes of Wrath, which was given to me at 16 by my English teacher, Lon Simmons. You know, mainly because he was a 6-year-old kid reading Nietzsche, and I go, you shouldn't be reading Nietzsche at 16. Here, read Steinbeck. So those guys, you know, they all went through the struggle. What we do is it's a creative space. I kind of learned that from Lee at the Strasberg Institute. That wasn't a hiring agency, it wasn't a hiring hall. It's where you fostered your creativity, where you could grow your craft unencumbered by commerce, so to speak. You know, you could learn your trade. A lot of people are learning their trade, you know, in a place where, look, if somebody sees you, you're only doing it for 3 months and it doesn't go well, and they're somebody who's influential, 5 years later, your name comes up and they go, oh, we saw them. We saw them at the Improv on some show. Somebody was booking, they're terrible. And they go, that's 5 years ago. They go, who else you got? Because they don't have time. That's not their job. So we kind of foster that. So we've had a lot of success, but we don't take credit for it. We got them on Saturday Night Live. Did I send his name to people who I thought might be able to put him in front of people a long time ago? Both of them that I mentioned and other people? Yes, I have. But whether that played into it or not, I don't know.
Absolutely. I like the way you don't take credit for it. That's very That's full of ethics.
No, I have a guy who I like very much, who's been in my class, has been in jail twice. I don't take credit for that either. He's been in jail twice, and that was due to our training.
I would like to see more comedians get versed in improv. Can you speak
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah, well, I certainly work with improv people. We've had where we've offered improv classes through our umbrella. We don't currently, we have a guy that we recommend everyone, but he's actually kind of branched off. He was on his own, then he came in under our umbrella in our promotional wing and stuff, and he's a pal of mine, and we still put his shows on at shows we book. So improv is important. The difference between improv and stand-up, there's, in my estimation, is in improv, the audience is giving you the setups. Giving me an occupation. You're a fireman. Where are you from? Toledo. What am I doing? You're cooking breakfast. So they're giving you the setups. So the challenge in stand-up, the beauty of it and the terror, both at the same time, simultaneously, is you have to supply the context. In other words, the setup and the reaction, the punchline. And you have to get the audience there. When the audience is giving you the setups, you do an improv, they've got the picture in their head first, and then they send it to you. You're an underwear salesman in Maine, and so they're already seeing it and giving it to you. But as a stand-up, you have to, go out there and go, I was an underwear salesman in Maine. I don't know why I chose that, but, and then get them to see that picture and then supply a reaction, so that's the real challenge in that. The challenge in improv is to be able to take someone else's suggestion, bam, and turn it into, is Viola Spolin, who kind of created improv. You can read it. She's gone now, of course, but her book, Something Wonderful Right Away, is an important book for any creative person. That's what you have to do. That's what improv is. Improv started out as rehearsals.
Wow.
These rehearsals that her son was involved with a acting troupe in Chicago called the Compass Players, Paul Sands, and she was involved. I don't know if she'd been in, I'm not quite sure how, but was involved. And then they started realizing that these rehearsals they were creating, a different way of learning acting than what was being taught at the American Academy or the Actor Studio or by the studio system, that they were entertaining in and of themselves. And this was one of the instances where you could put a rehearsal on stage and the audiences really responded to it.
Wow.
So, improv, as we know, it was born right around the time I was, in the mid 1950s in Chicago with something called the Compass Players that later on became, Second City, etc. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a nerd geek about, who we are and what we do, and I love all of it. And, if ever you look up, your house is on fire, eventually you're going to go in and go, how did that happen? Or you go, how did I get here? How did comedy clubs happen? The story is that Bud Friedman, God rest his soul, just recently passed away. That he came up with the idea for the New York Improv in Hell's Kitchen because he was a struggling actor, comedian, you're knocking around New York, you're doing off-Broadway, you're opening for a jazz band on 52nd Street, you're doing what they did in that era. And he goes, none of my friends, we could never see each other because all working at night. And what if I opened up a bar where we could all come down after our shows and stuff? That was his idea. By the way, it wasn't a stand-up comedy club. It's not called Bud Friedman's Stand-Up Comedy Club. It's called Bud Friedman's Improv.
Wow.
So there was a time you could go to the New York City Improv, or even the first time I went to the Melrose Improv in Los Angeles was not to see stand-up comedy. But I had a friend named Amy Madigan, who later on became an accomplished actor. She was Kevin Costner's wife in Field of Dreams. She was on did Streetcar on Broadway. She was a friend of mine, was in the group of young rum runners I ran around Hollywood with in my 20s. And she was in a band, like an all-girl comedic band. And she goes, "Hey, I'm playing the Improv." We're going, "Oh, that place, everybody goes to the Comedy Store." So the first time I went to the Improv, I saw a band, you know, and so you could go to the Improv and see improv groups, sketch groups, poets, musicians, but the comics like kudzu just kind of took over.
How did that happen?
I don't know, just audio. I don't know. There was a brilliant comic named Kip Adada. And Kip was one of the early successes, like one of those guys who was successful a little too soon. There was that whole bunch that was successful in the mid 70s before the boom, before the bonfire.
Yeah.
But he walked out on stage at the Improv one night, and it's on evening at the Improv somewhere. So you're talking late 70s, you're talking the disco era. Okay. And if you were around, and even if you weren't, let me explain the disco era. The disco era was where people that could really dance, people who could really dance, just took over every dance club, every bar. And since most people couldn't really dance, most people really felt like crap about themselves. There's some guy. I used to hang out in like this boogie bar where they played Allman Brothers music in St. Louis, and Skinner, and John Lee Hooker. And you could went in there in your flannel shirt and your Fu Manchu mustache and your giant bell bottoms and hung out and just kind of grooved to the music. And one night I walked in and everybody's in polyester spitting each other and there's this shiny ball. And I go, wow, no one sent me the memo. It was like overnight. So dancing became a big insecurity for America. Kip Adada walked out on a stand-up comedy stage one night, looked at the audience and said, "I know why you people are here. You people are here because you can't dance." So comedy clubs became the date night of the early 80s. It's where a boy could go up to a girl. It still was the majority of that. Probably still is, but not as much, and that's fine. And that's not what I'm talking about here. And go, "I'd like to go out with you." And she goes, "Well, where are we going to go?" And he goes, "Well, there's a comedy club." And she goes, "That sounds like fun." So there you could just sit. Comedy clubs are just returning to going to a Grateful Dead show where you sat cross-legged in the grass and smoked pot and watched. Now you sat in a chair and snorted cocaine and watched. And it was probably what started. I don't know.
So funny.
Yeah.
What are some high points in your comedy career when you were touring the country?
Cleveland, which tells you a lot about my career. No, I don't know what high points were. I was just fascinated and still am really fascinated by the fact that people would give me money for telling jokes, that they would give me enough money that I could, buy it. I was the first one in my set to buy a house. It was a townhouse. It was in a valley. It wasn't in a great part of the valley, but instead of living 2 or 3 to an apartment or something, we owned a home. But I did some TV, just the fact that they paid me. That one day I looked at my refrigerator and I went, everything in this refrigerator is here because I thought something, wrote it down, said it twice to myself, and then 3 times to an audience, and they gave me money for it. I worked with a lot of great people. I was very close with Bill Hicks. A lot of great people, Rich Jenny, these were, in my mind's eye, the 3 great comics of that which now becoming the golden age of the stand-up comedy boom, were, and still are in one case, were Rich Jenny, Bill Hicks, and Rich Scheidner. They were just brilliant, and they were like progenitors, which is why.
What's a progenitor?
They came up with the idea first. That they came up with the idea on Monday that everybody was doing on Friday. So pioneer. So in their case, thought pioneers. Because they would think up something. So pioneers in the Old West was the guy who goes, "I'll go over the hill and see if there's any trouble there," and then came back with arrows in him, and later on the town built a statue to the guy. He was the pioneer. Without him, we wouldn't have known. If we went over the hill, we'd all be killed. So these were the guys who kind of, emotionally and intellectually and creatively would die on a hill taking an idea and turning it into something that then became so abundantly clear to everyone else. And other people may do it better, but they didn't. It's the Dylan album, Blood on the Tracks, literally meaning that, his blood went into putting the grooves into the vinyl of that song. These are the guys who the blood was on the page and then went to the stage. So knowing those guys and being friends with those guys and hanging out with those guys and kind of learning from those guys. And later on, maybe for a short time managing some of them or something, or still working with them, were maybe the highlights. I don't know. It's all been kind of a weird magical ride,
Absolutely. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So how do people get involved with your comedyschools.com? What kind of people are you looking for to enroll in it?
Well, we're not looking for people. We're saying, here's, it's like a restaurant. We open it up and go, here's what we offer. And then we're not going to go, oh, it's not that. Oh, you can't come into Elaine's, it's, we have a website. I don't know if I've mentioned it, comedyschools.com.
Yeah.
We do live workshops in the greater Phoenix area at the Tempe Center for the Arts. And we like that we're there. We've been in comedy clubs before, but oftentimes we find ourselves then bending to whatever the culture of the club is, and at this age point in my life, as I'm approaching 70, I'm not afraid to admit it, in 3 years, but, I'm not interested in bending to anybody and go, well, these guys don't really sell tickets, so I don't know. We focus totally on the creative aspect. Go to comedyschools.com. We also offer a Zoom workshop, and it's either, I should know this, and the people that work for you are going to be mad because they're watching this, either December 22nd or 22nd. We're offering a free intro on Zoom. You go, oh, you learn comedy on Zoom. I don't know. Some people learn from a book. Some people learn from a class. Some people learn from listening. Some people learn from seeing. So there are people who go, you can't learn anything from Zoom. I go, all right, well, you can't, but that doesn't mean you can't learn, but that's fine. But there's people that can. And if you're interested, go to our website, and then you can register for the free intro December 22nd on Zoom, wherever you are in the entire world. That's the magic of Zoom. And we do a free intro, and you can come to it and then never speak to us again, or you can come to it and take notes and learn stuff, or you can come to it and go, well, we'd like to do the beginning workshop, which is more of a seminar information-based thing where we give you the tools. That's a long answer. December 22nd, comedyschools.com Zoom. Hey, be there. We're going to give away free turkeys for the kids.
I'm going to put that
I'm joking. If anybody's now going to be upset they don't get a free turkey, that was a joke.
What's your favorite joke you've ever heard in your life? You don't have to tell me. Well, probably better ethically to say whose joke it was. Do you have a favorite joke you've ever heard?
I like a lot of jokes, but I'm going to tell you one that I fell in love with the first time I read it. I'd never heard anybody say it. And oddly enough, later on, many years later, I found out that it's Doug Stanhope's favorite joke too, but I discovered it in a book called The Big Book of American Humor, which was given to me for my birthday by Rich Scheidner. And I found this joke. And I go, this is the joke that if I'm going to have a joke put on my tombstone, this is the punchline I will have put on there. So here's the joke. And I don't know who wrote it. It was in this book. Okay. There's a traveling salesman driving through the countryside, and he sees a pig farmer standing under an apple tree with pigs standing all around him. And he slows down because what he's seeing is the farmer is picking up pigs one at a time, holding them over his head and let the pig eat an apple out of the tree and then setting it on the ground. And then repeating the process. And the guy actually stops and gets out of his car and watches and goes, what a stupid, stupid pig farmer. So he walks over and he's leaning up against the fence. He goes, hey, Farmer Brown. Yeah. He goes, what are you doing? He goes, well, I'm feeding my pigs. He goes, yeah, I can see that. He goes, but wouldn't it save time to pull the apples down off the tree, throw them on the ground, and let the pigs eat them like that? Farmer goes, sure. But what's time to a pig? So That joke embodies a lot to me. Like I said, I found out later on, seeing an interview with Doug, who I knew when he was starting, that's his favorite joke too. And that's one of the few connections I have left with Mr. Stanhope. But
Yeah,
I love that joke. What's time to a pig?
that's a great joke. Oh my goodness. I like
It's one of
that.
those where people either get it or they don't. Do you get it? Yeah, you don't get it. Okay, then you don't get it, man. So that's what that joke is.
Well, I have to cut it short, and I want you to close
Let's
out the
go all
interview.
day. Let's go all day.
I want you to come back and do a much longer time with me because you have a lot to say. Unfortunately, I put back-to-back interviews, and
Sure.
so I have to go to the bathroom in between interviews. So, but I'm going to hit you up right after this to come back on and do a whole as long as you want to talk, anything you want to cover.
I would love to do that. I've enjoyed this very much. I appreciate you. You're a fantastic
You
interviewer.
are.
And I feel just really comfortable, and this has been fun talking to
Yeah.
people who love comedy about comedy.
Absolutely. What would you like to close out the show by saying to people that are watching, whether they're normal people or people in comedy?
Uh, we're gonna make it to the mountaintop. No, I may not make it there with you.
But let's time to a pig.
It's time to a pig. All right. Okay. Hey, you know what? I have to go to the bathroom too.
Thank you. I'm 3 years older than you, or 4. Bye.
Yeah, you don't look it.
Thank you so much. You guys, that's Tony Vicich. Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.